Camilla was in a very, very unpleasant situation. She was almost became a prisoner in her own home. She was vilified.
No one saw this coming. Queen Camilla completely lost it when she spotted Princess Charlotte rocking one of Princess Diana's most legendary jewels, the Spencer tiara. Insiders say Camilla totally flipped, storming over and demanding that 10-year-old Charlotte take it off immediately. The entire room went silent, but Charlotte's reaction? Totally unexpected. And it left Camilla red-faced. What did Charlotte say, and why did Camilla freak out over this iconic piece? Stick around because the full story is wild. The moment Charlotte stepped into the banquet hall wearing Diana's Spencer tiara, Camilla's face was priceless, shocked, almost frozen, like she'd seen a ghost. But why did this royal heirloom spark such a fiery reaction? Let's break it down. This all went down at Camilla's private birthday banquet, celebrating her 78th just 2 days ago. The royal family gathered, along with close friends and a few high-profile associates, to toast the Queen at the centre of attention. Laughter, chatter, and fine dining filled the room, until the Wales family arrived, Prince William, Catherine, and their 3 kids. And then, the tiara moment that no one could forget happened. Everyone looked polished and perfect, but Charlotte instantly stole the spotlight. Draped in a simple yet elegant dark blue gown, she carried herself with a poise far beyond her 10 years. Everything seemed normal, until Charlotte stepped away from the table. That's when the tension hit. When she returned, the Spencer tiara perched on her head. The entire banquet hall went silent, every eye locked on her sparkling crown as whispers rippled through the room. Camilla froze mid-seat, staring at the tiara like it had cast a spell over her. Her face screamed the question without a word. Why is she wearing that at my party? Charlotte remained calm, sliding back into her chair as the room's energy shifted completely. Camilla's gaze never wavered, and murmurs of Diana's legacy grew louder. Charlotte is already turning into Diana, someone murmured. Debates sparked around the hall. Some swore Charlotte mirrored her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, while others insisted her grace, presence, and quiet power were pure Diana. Camilla tried to force a smile, focusing on her meal, but the night was slipping away. Her birthday celebration had become, unintentionally, a tribute to Diana, the woman whose shadow still haunted the monarchy and unsettled Camilla. And if that wasn't enough, insiders revealed that an unnamed royal raised a glass to honor Diana's legacy. Guests quickly followed, standing to toast the late princess, leaving Camilla stuck in her own private storm. Camilla lifted her glass, forcing a polite smile for the crowd, but inside she was burning with frustration. This was supposed to be her night, yet once again, Diana's shadow had stolen the spotlight. She scanned the table, feeling like the outsider in her own celebration, a black sheep trapped at her own banquet. And it all started with Charlotte daring to wear Diana's iconic Spencer tiara. Her eyes drifted to the Wales family, laughing and chatting freely, when she suddenly realized Charlotte wasn't with them. Heart racing, Camilla excused herself and slipped quietly away, wandering the corridors until she found Charlotte tucked away in a side room with little Louis by her side. No one could have predicted what happened next. "You shouldn't be wearing that," Camilla said softly, stepping closer. Insiders say her tone was calm, almost measured, as if she were worried about the tiara's delicate value rather than the bold statement Charlotte had just made. This wasn't just any piece of jewelry, it was the legendary Spencer tiara, the very one Diana wore on her wedding day to Prince Charles in 1981. A Spencer family heirloom for generations, it was traditionally loaned to daughters of the family for symbolic events. Since Diana's passing, the tiara was almost never seen, except in 2018, when Diana's niece, Celia McCorradale, wore it for her wedding. Camilla tried to process why Charlotte had been allowed to wear such an iconic piece, but Catherine stepped in. Seeing her daughter standing with Camilla, she quietly asked if everything was all right. Everyone expected Camilla to voice her disapproval, maybe even scold Charlotte, but she said nothing. Without a word, Camilla turned and returned to her seat, acting as if nothing had happened. Insiders later revealed that she stayed silent because speaking up in that moment could have ignited a full-blown scandal, and she clearly wasn't ready for that fire. Even as the evening rolled on, Camilla's eyes never left Charlotte, especially as conversations kept circling back to Diana and her enduring legacy. Camilla had always been uneasy whenever Diana's name came up. At past events, she'd stayed quiet, barely uttering a word when the late Princess of Wales was mentioned. Tonight was no different. Camilla stayed silent, knowing that any comment could be read as bitterness or jealousy. But her silence didn't change a thing. The party, meant to celebrate her, had completely slipped away. Every gaze was glued to the tiara and the memory it carried. It wasn't just gold and diamonds. It was Diana herself, taking over the room. Why did this tiara hold such power over Camilla? Why could a piece of jewelry unravel her carefully constructed composure and haunt her mood? To understand, we have to go back to the start of Camilla's royal journey. Camilla was never born to be royalty. She wasn't groomed to rule, nor raised in the palace walls. Yet she fought her way into the royal circle, clawing her place as queen consort. Whispers follow her to this day. Tales of a path some call ruthless. Decades may have passed, but for many, the shadow of Camilla's past still lingers. People remember her as the woman who shattered a fairy tale royal marriage, cast a long shadow over Diana, and turned personal ambition into real royal power. But how did she climb to the throne of influence? Keep watching to find out. Camilla Shand was born on July 17, 1947, in London. She grew up in Sussex with her parents, Bruce and Rosalind Shand, and her two younger siblings. Her father, a decorated officer, later became Vice Lord Lieutenant of East Sussex. Privilege and connections surrounded her from the start, shaping a life far from ordinary. At 11, she started attending Queen's Gate School in South Kensington. Friends recalled her boasting often about her family's royal links through her great-great-grandmother Alice Keel, famously known as a mistress of King Edward III. For Camilla, this connection was a badge of pride she wore openly. After finishing school, Camilla spent 2 years studying in Paris before returning to London as a debutante in 1965. It was then she met Andrew Parker Bowles, a cavalry officer moving in the same elite circles. They clicked instantly and began dating. Their relationship had its highs and lows, but they remained connected. With Andrew's army career taking him far from London, their time together was often limited, stretching their relationship across long distances. Even with distance stretching between them, Camilla and Andrew exchanged letters to keep their bond alive. But it wasn't easy. Then, in 1970, fate stepped in. Camilla met Prince Charles at a polo match, and their first encounter was electric. They clicked instantly, laughing and talking as if they'd known each other forever. Before long, they became lovers, drawn irresistibly to each other. Yet, just like with Andrew, distance interfered. Charles had his naval career to focus on and was soon leaving London for 2 years. Before his departure, they promised to keep their connection alive through letters, and Charles did maintain contact, sending heartfelt messages from afar. Many wondered if Charles would have proposed or married Camilla before leaving, but he didn't. At the time, he was in his early 20s, still considered too young for marriage, and aware that his parents, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, would never approve. Camilla wasn't from aristocracy, and whispers about her family lingered. Her great-grandmother, Alice Keppel, had been the mistress of King Edward III. For Charles to marry Camilla would have been scandalous. Heir to the throne, tied to the great-granddaughter of a royal mistress. The palace would never have accepted it, but that wasn't the only problem. Camilla wasn't a virgin, and back then a bride's purity was seen as essential for someone destined to be queen. With all these obstacles, Charles didn't propose. Camilla, realizing their romance had little hope of marriage, drifted back to Andrew Parker Bowles, who had just returned to London after his naval service. Reunited, Camilla and Andrew grew close again, spending more time together and strengthening their bond. Yet, Charles's letters continued to arrive, and Camilla replied, keeping both men tied to her in some way. The delicate balance shifted when Andrew decided to make things official. He proposed. Camilla said yes, and by July 1973, they were married, cementing a chapter of her life that would later feed whispers about ambition, charm, and a path toward the crown. When Charles learned of Camilla's marriage, he was stunned. Even though she was engaged to Andrew, their letters had kept their connection alive, personal, affectionate, and deeply intimate. He never expected her to marry someone else so suddenly. The news cut deep, leaving him hurt Yet powerless, Camilla had made her choice, and Charles had to accept it. He poured his emotions into a letter to his great-uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, the only person who knew the full story of his bond with Camilla. In that letter, Charles revealed his disappointment and pain, but also his resolve to move forward. This moment closed one door, and soon another opened, bringing Diana Spencer into his life. Despite everything, Camilla and Charles maintained a close relationship, gradually shifting toward friendship. Charles even became godfather to Camilla's first child, Thomas Parker Bowles, signaling the depth of their enduring bond. Eventually, Charles moved forward and met the young lady Diana Spencer, setting in motion a new chapter in royal history. Charles first crossed paths with Diana while visiting her sister, Lady Sarah Spencer, whom he was briefly dating at the time. Their initial encounter was brief, just a few exchanged words, but fate had more in store. They met again in 1978 at Charles's 30th birthday celebration, where Diana was also in attendance. They spoke, but closeness didn't spark, yet. It wasn't until 1979, after Charles suffered the devastating loss of his beloved great-uncle and mentor, Lord Louis Mountbatten, assassinated by an IRA bomb, that their connection deepened. Diana offered him sympathy and comforting words, and from that moment, a quiet friendship began to take root. Seeing this budding bond, Diana started spending more time with Charles. Before long, she received an invitation from one of Charles's close friends, Philip de Pass, to spend a few nights in West Sussex, England, an opportunity knowing full well that Charles would be there. The stage was quietly set for a romance that would soon capture the world's attention. Charles and Diana enjoyed each other's company, sharing long conversations, fishing trips, and quiet moments away from the public eye. Diana was even seen more often at Balmoral Castle, strengthening their bond. The media quickly caught on, linking their names and fueling speculation that the prince had finally found a suitable match. Prince Philip, noticing the growing press attention, didn't want gossip to damage his son's reputation, or Diana's. He strongly advised Charles to propose. Following his father's guidance, Charles asked Diana to marry him. She was overjoyed, convinced she was stepping into a perfect royal marriage. But the reality was far more complicated. Although Camilla was married, she and Charles remained romantically connected. Meanwhile, Camilla's marriage to Andrew was falling apart, with his infidelity driving her closer to Charles. He became her confidant, her shoulder to lean on. Gradually, their friendship reignited into romance, proving that the bond between them was far from over. Yet, once Camilla realized that Charles was preparing to marry Diana, she made the painful decision to step back. She and Charles quietly agreed to bring their romance to an end, each aware that the path ahead for the young prince was now set. Meanwhile, Diana was swept up in dreams of a perfect fairy tale marriage, imagining a life filled with love, laughter, and the promise of building a happy family with Charles. She had no idea that dark clouds were already forming on the horizon, and that her perfect dream would soon face challenges far beyond her imagination. On July 29, 1981, the world watched as Charles and Diana were married in the grand St. Paul's Cathedral in London. Charles, at 32, and Diana, only 20, stood together before millions of eyes. The ceremony was nothing short of spectacular, a dazzling display of royal tradition, opulence, and ceremony. It was broadcast worldwide, capturing the attention of an estimated 750 million viewers, all witnessing history in the making. Diana became the first Englishwoman in centuries to marry the heir to the throne, a moment that cemented her place in royal history forever. Even Camilla attended the wedding as a guest, a quiet presence amidst the pomp and grandeur, watching as the man she loved began a new chapter with another woman. After the vows were exchanged, Charles and Diana set off on their honeymoon, and for a brief moment, everything seemed peaceful, calm, and as though the story might unfold like the perfect fairy tale Diana had always imagined. But beneath the golden exterior of the celebrations, tensions, secrets, and unfinished emotions lingered, hinting that the fairy tale might not last as long or as smoothly as anyone hoped. Charles focused on his new role as husband, and in June 1982, the royal family celebrated the birth of their first son, Prince William, a symbol of a new generation for the monarchy. The palace was overjoyed, and public celebrations filled the air with excitement. Yet beneath the surface, tensions were quietly brewing. Cracks soon began to appear in Charles and Diana's marriage. Charles grew increasingly frustrated with the media's obsession with Diana whenever they appeared in public. One clear example came in 1983 during their tour of Australia and New Zealand with baby William. Crowds cheered wildly for Diana and the child, while Charles found himself pushed into the shadows. The press followed suit, lavishing attention on Diana and leaving Charles frustrated and overlooked. His jealousy simmered. Charles had always loved the spotlight, yet for the first time he felt sidelined. Even small gestures, like public gifts meant for Diana, highlighted the growing imbalance. He was barely acknowledged, and Diana seemed to shine brighter with every passing moment. These tensions quietly widened the rift between them, though they managed to maintain appearances for the public eye. The pressure intensified with the birth of their second child, Prince Harry. Reports suggest that Charles had hoped for a daughter and had grumbled about Harry's red hair. These personal disappointments, combined with the unrelenting media focus on Diana, deepened the emotional distance between the couple, setting the stage for the struggles that would soon engulf the royal family. This was the turning point in Charles and Diana's marriage, Charles quietly finding his way back into Camilla's arms. But the story doesn't end there. Camilla once again became the shadow over Diana's life, the thorn in her marriage. After Harry's birth, Diana saw far less of her husband. Charles claimed he was busy with royal duties, but in truth, he was spending time with Camilla. Diana, already struggling with postnatal depression, felt isolated and invisible. The royal family, failing to understand her condition, dismissed her suffering as attention-seeking, insisting she had always craved the media spotlight. Alone and misunderstood, Diana began to retreat into herself, hiding her pain and harming herself in secrecy. She felt trapped in a gilded cage with no one to turn to. Rumors about Charles and Camilla had reached her from friends, but she refused to believe them, until one day, everything changed. Diana overheard Charles speaking to Camilla in the bathroom. His words were devastating. He spoke of reaching the end with Diana's postnatal struggles, and then declared to Camilla that he loved her. Diana froze, frozen in shock and disbelief. Her worst nightmare had become real. Her husband was cheating on her, right under her roof, and she had no one to shield her from the betrayal. Diana returned to her room crushed and heartbroken, tears streaming as she cried herself to sleep that night. Yet beneath the sadness, fear took hold. She dreaded what a divorce would mean for her children, for her fragile place within the royal family. She knew she couldn't hope to win a battle against the monarchy, and that fear only pushed her deeper into despair. Her anguish soon manifested physically. Diana developed an eating disorder, bulimia, secretly filling herself with food only to purge it afterward. Palace staff whispered behind her back, dismissing her struggles as attention-seeking, but they never understood the truth. Her illness was born from pain, betrayal, and the crushing weight of a cheating husband. Even as Charles became aware that Diana knew of his affairs, he did not change. If anything, his behavior worsened. Long nights away, emotional distance, and a coldness that left Diana feeling utterly alone. She watched the fairy tale marriage she had dreamed of crumble before her very eyes, all because of Camilla's presence in their lives. But Diana was clever and resilient. She was only a young woman with 2 royal sons to raise, and she knew that one wrong move could cost her everything. So she resolved to act with caution, to navigate the treacherous waters of palace life carefully, protecting herself and her children while plotting how to reclaim some measure of control over her own life. In 1992, Diana took a daring step that would shake the monarchy to its core. She secretly collaborated with journalist Andrew Morton, who published the explosive book Diana, Her True Story. The book pulled back the curtain on life inside the royal palace, revealing the struggles Diana faced, including Charles's affair with Camilla. Though Morton could not openly label Charles and Camilla as lovers, he described them as unusually close friends, hinting at the scandal without naming names. When the book hit the shelves, the royal family was stunned. Public outrage was immediate, and Diana was summoned for questioning. Officials pressed her on whether she had worked with Morton, but Diana denied any involvement. Buckingham Palace even threatened to sue Morton for libel. Yet behind closed doors, Diana had secretly guided the publication. She never met Morton face to face, but through trusted friend James Colthurst, she sent tape recordings detailing her unhappiness, the betrayal she endured, and how Camilla had stolen her husband from her. The book's explosive revelations fueled public sympathy for Diana and pushed Charles and Camilla further into the spotlight. Their boldness grew. They were often seen together, and when away from the public eye in London, they behaved as though they were already husband and wife. Meanwhile, Diana poured herself into charity work, maintaining her dignity and custody of her sons, determined to protect her family and preserve her role as mother while quietly plotting her next moves in the shadowy world of royal politics. In 1993, the royal family endured another explosive blow with the infamous Tampon Gate scandal. A secretly recorded phone call surfaced in which Charles told Camilla he wished he could live inside her trousers as a tampon. The conversation shocked the world and ignited waves of public criticism. Yet, astonishingly, this bizarre and humiliating revelation did nothing to end their illicit relationship. By 1994, Charles decided to address his affairs publicly. In a highly anticipated television interview, he admitted to being unfaithful during his marriage. He tried to justify himself, claiming the affair only began after his marriage to Diana had irretrievably broken down. His words were intended to soften his image, but the confession had the opposite effect. It only deepened public sympathy for Diana, painting her as the wronged and vulnerable wife in a story of betrayal and heartbreak. Then, in 1995, Diana delivered a bombshell of her own. Appearing live on the BBC's Panorama with journalist Martin Bashir, she broke her silence and spoke candidly about the pain she had endured behind closed doors. Her most unforgettable line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," confirmed what many had long suspected, that Camilla had played a central role in the collapse of the fairy tale marriage. The nation was stunned, the palace scandalized, and Diana's courage instantly cemented her as a figure of public fascination and empathy. When asked if Camilla Parker Bowles had played a role in the breakdown of her marriage, Diana's response shocked the world. "Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." With that simple yet devastating line, she confirmed what the public had long suspected. Camilla had been the 3rd person in her marriage, the reason her fairy tale seemed to crumble. The world was stunned, and sympathy for Diana soared to unprecedented heights. During the interview, Diana revealed she had long been aware of Charles and Camilla's relationship, but had felt powerless to act. Charles was the heir to the throne, and the monarchy's shield protected him at every turn. Friends who cared about Diana had whispered warnings, hinting at Charles's affair, but she was left to navigate the betrayal largely alone. Meanwhile, Charles and Camilla exchanged letters and spent time together, their connection growing while Diana was forced to perform the role of flawless royal wife. Cameras flashed, the public adored her, and yet behind the royal smiles, she was trapped in misery. Eventually, Diana confessed she had grown weary of pretending, tired of maintaining the image of the perfect bride while enduring a life of betrayal and heartbreak. Her honesty sent shockwaves across the globe, forever changing public perception of the monarchy and exposing the scandal at its very heart. Diana's revelation about Camilla Parker Bowles shocked not only the United Kingdom but the entire world, giving the public its first real glimpse into the emotional torment she had endured behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace. She went further, disclosing that living this double life had driven her to develop bulimia, an eating disorder that left her physically weak, but offered a brief, painful escape from royal duties and appearances alongside Charles. Yet even in those desperate moments, the emptiness in her heart remained unfilled. Seeking guidance, Diana turned to her therapist, Dr. Maurice Lepage, opening up about her fears, despair, and the betrayal she felt at every turn. Dr. Lepage encouraged her to confront those fears and confront Camilla if she wanted any chance of reclaiming control over her life. The opportunity arrived in February 1989 during the 40th birthday celebration of Camilla's sister, Lady Annabel Goldsmith, in London. Just days before the event, Charles, speaking formally, asked Diana if she planned to attend, likely expecting her to decline, knowing Camilla would be present. To his surprise and perhaps alarm, Diana accepted. When she arrived at the party, the tension was palpable. Diana refused the customary warm greeting, the kiss on the cheek that signaled polite friendship. Instead, she extended a stiff, deliberate handshake. The pretense of cordiality was over. For Diana, there was no reason to act warm toward the woman who had destroyed her marriage, betrayed her trust, and pretended to care while secretly entwined with her husband. In that moment, Diana's icy composure spoke louder than words, sending a clear message. The era of silent suffering was over. Throughout the evening, Diana appeared composed, laughing and chatting effortlessly with other guests, her poise impeccable despite the storm brewing inside. But soon, she noticed that Charles and Camilla were nowhere to be seen. A flash of alarm crossed her face as she searched the house, her steps quick and purposeful. Finally, she found them downstairs, deep in conversation with another man. Without hesitation, Diana joined the group, her presence calm yet commanding. As the conversation wound down, the men began to move away, but Charles's expression betrayed his unease. He sensed what Diana was about to do, something he had long feared. When the room finally cleared and only the two women remained, Diana turned sharply to Camilla, her gaze piercing. She stated plainly that she knew about her secret involvement with Charles. Camilla tried to dismiss the confrontation with a shrug, an air of casual deflection, but Diana would not be ignored. Her voice held steady, carrying both anger and quiet authority. After a tense pause, Camilla responded, but her words were chillingly cold. She claimed that Diana already had everything she could want: the adoration of men, 2 beautiful children, and the crown beside her. The remark hung in the air like a challenge, sharp and deliberate, igniting the simmering tension between the two women to an almost unbearable pitch. "What more could you want?" Camilla asked, her tone sharp and confident. Diana's answer was simple, yet devastating in its honesty. She wanted her husband. Not the cameras, not the endless attention, not the royal spotlight, just Charles, her husband, by her side. Her voice carried both pain and determination as she warned Camilla to stay away from him. The moment crackled with tension, thick enough to cut with a knife, until someone finally stepped in to break the standoff. Charles, however, was furious, his face betraying the shame and anger he could not fully hide. That night marked a turning point. The rift in their marriage only deepened after this confrontation. Diana had fought to hold on, trying to protect what she believed was hers. But Camilla never let go. She continued her relationship with Charles, ensuring that he spent less and less time at home. The tension, heartbreak, and betrayal culminated months later in Diana's explosive BBC Panorama interview, a bombshell that made the entire world realize the collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage. After the divorce was finalized, Charles and Camilla no longer hid their connection. They carried on publicly with their relationship, leaving a permanent mark on royal history and the hearts of those who had once adored Diana. Despite facing intense backlash and harsh criticism, Charles and Camilla ignored the uproar and carried on with their relationship. Then, on the 31st of August 1997, the world was shaken when Diana tragically died in a car accident in Paris. Yet even her death could not halt Charles and Camilla's path. They eventually married. Camilla finally assumed Diana's former role as Charles's wife and queen consort. But no matter how high Camilla rose, Diana's shadow never faded. Her memory remained alive in her sons, in the public's heart, and in every corner of the royal legacy. So when Princess Charlotte wore the Spencer tiara, it struck a raw nerve. For Camilla, it may have been a piercing reminder that she could never fully erase the past or truly replace Diana. Diana's legacy remained cemented through her children and grandchildren, while Camilla's presence often felt fragile, vulnerable to comparison. Diana may be gone, but she is far from forgotten. She lives on in the hearts of those she left behind and in the history she shaped. So, what do you think made Queen Camilla lose her composure when she saw Charlotte wearing Diana's iconic tiara? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exclusive royal stories, and click the video on your screen next. You won't want to miss it.